Okay, so good morning, everyone. I hope you're doing well. So, what we will do, we will be first covering uh, some slides which are left from the last class. We'll complete that first, and then we will be having the two presentations, and then finally we'll go for the test, the quiz that we have today. And so, kind of, we have 40 minutes before we have the quiz. So, if you are in kind of in Salman Khan mode, so please be in Manoj Kumar mode because we want you to turn on the camera when we start the quiz. So please get ready by that time. And so I think we can get started at least from the slides. So in the let me share my screen first. So if any of your friends haven't joined, so please ask them to join. Okay. So in the previous class, we have discussed about the term frequency, inverse domain frequency, how they are useful, why they are required, and how we can basically represent uh, how we can basically use the vector space model in order to represent documents in the vector space, or even the query is in vector space. So just a quick overview. So in case of representing document as a vector, so we have a v dimensional vector space where v is the size of your vocabulary, that is the number of terms you have in your dictionary. So the terms are access of the space, so documents are the points or the vector in that space. So it depends on how basically you represent different document in the vector space based on which terms is present, which terms is not present. So definitely you can represent a document in the vector space just based on the document. You can see the term document matrix where if some term basically appeared in the document, you can make it one. If you think if some term is not present, you can make it zero. In this way, probably you can have 10100 kind of matrix, kind of vector for the given document. And similar thing you can probably do for the query as well, right? So what could anybody quickly comment? What was the issue with such kind of matrix, such kind of the vector representation? Because in a way this is just a kind of bag of words model, right? In a way you can say it's basically you are having the some quantitative representation of the document based on the statistics of the different terms which are there. Anyone, what is the main issue with this kind of representation as a vector? Okay, so just to recall, so as we have discussed in the last class, so if we are having the bag of word representation, right, so which is probably just merely showing if some word is present or not. So one of the issue is that, I mean, you don't know the ordering of the different terms which is there in the document or in the query, right? So we have discussed one example, like Mary runs faster than John, right? Or probably the John runs faster than Mary. In a way, despite they are semantically very, very different documents, right? But they will have eventually the same representation, right? So this is one of the issue with the vector space model if you're using the bag of words concept for the representation of the vector. How and also there might be the case like uh, some vector or probably the some document will have more frequent words, or probably the same term probably appearing twice, thrice, or probably uh, more than probably the other document you are comparing with. So in that case, how you are going to deal with that? Any guess? Any? So we have discussed in the last class as well. What would be the solution for that uh, if the I mean the term frequency that you have in different documents are different? So we have discussed one example. So for example, one document have probably Sachin probably occurring only once. Probably in another document, probably which is some kind you can think of a kind of bigger document may have probably Sachin appearing 3 times, right? So what do you think? I mean, how you are going to deal with such case? Okay, so it seems like everyone is just getting ready for the test, not in the mood of answering. Okay, anyways, no issue. So as we have discussed, like, so in a way you'll be having very high dimensional kind of tens of millions of dimension when we apply this to the web search engine. So these are kind of very sparse vectors, and most entries are zero, right? So how you can basically deal with that? Similarly, we have discussed about how you can basically get the relevant document for a given query. So one possibility could be, how about just you treat query as a shorter document, right? Because usually the queries have very few terms, right? So you can treat query as a vector as well, and by treating them as a smaller document, and you can represent exactly the same way that you are representing the documents. And once you have the two vectors, you can basically find some distance or probably the similarity between them, right? A- and basically we have also discussed, so the proximity can be computed, that is how close they are based on the similarity of the vectors. And it could be also be computed by the inverse of this distance, because they are kind of inversely proportional to each other, right? So we have also discussed that there are some issues with the distance, right? If you use the distance as a metric, I think that will cause, and that may not give you the exact or probably the correct comparison uh, between the given two documents, mainly because I mean they may uh, they may be probably um, uh, despite having the similar distribution of the word, but if the magnitude is different, they will be very far as compared to probably the other document, which may have you can say very diverse set of terms which has been used, but probably bit closer in compared to probably the query. So in a way you may get the probably the wrong result that we have discussed in the last class as well. So what could be the solution in that case? uh, so you can compute the distance. So as we have discussed, Euclidean distance is a bad idea, as we have because the vectors could be of different length. So this is one of the example that we have discussed, right? So you have the given query q, so you have list of document d1, d2, d3, and so on. So as you can see, the here, since the vector we are representing is determined based on the whatever the terms or kind of distribution of the terms they have. So probably from the vector itself, you can see in this vector space, the representation of the query q is very similar to the query d2, document d2, but document d1 and d3 will be slightly different, because the terms probably they may have is very different as compared to the q. But if you compute the distance, I hope you can see, like, this distance is longer as compared to probably these two, but semantically this is wrong, right? One of the simpler example I can think of, how about you just put this document d2 on top of this q? When I mean that, just probably they have exactly the same set of documents, same set of terms, but probably the in definitely in the document, since it's a longer text, and so they may have same set of terms which has been appeared in the query q, appeared many times. So the despite they having the same exactly same distribution, but probably the document d2 will be longer in length, because yeah, so the number of you can see the frequency of these words are probably more as compared to query q. So in a way, if you compute the distance, despite they are exactly the same, semantically same, that may not show you the probably the correct comparison. So that is the reason distance is a bad idea, as we have also discussed in the last class in details. So the one solution could be use angle instead of distance. So through experiment, so yeah, so take a document d and append to itself and call it d dash. So semantically, as we have just mentioned in the previous slide, so d and d dash have exactly the same content, but probably the frequency might be different. So in that case, the Euclidean distance between the two documents could be quite large, depends on how large the document is, but the angle between the two documents is zero, because they are exactly the same set of words. So the key idea is, so rank document according to the angle with the query. So in a way, you can basically get the uh, correct documents, or you can say the most suitable documents for your given query. So from angles to cosine, so how you can basically compute that, as we have discussed, like cosine is a like monotonically decreasing function for the interval 0 to 180. So you can basically just compute the cost value of that. If you are able to compute the cost value, so you can see that based on the cost value, you can say that whether the document that you are having, whether the document that you're having is uh, having high score or probably the less score based on the cosine similarity. So in a way, you can compute the proximity. So one thing you can see here, you need to process the different vector could be of different length. So given the same example, if you append document D to D again and make it D dash, if the length will be different, then it will be difficult for you to probably compute the exact proximity. So the one solution could be, how about just compute the unit vector for that. Just compute basically the unit vector by dividing the magnitude of the vector to that. So in that case, you can compute basically the its L2 norm. L2 norm is simply the way you can compute its magnitude, and in that way you can normalize the whole vector by divided by the L2 norm. In a way, so dividing a vector by its L2 norm makes the unique length. Since it's a now unit length vector, you can simply compute the distance, simply compute the cost value of between those two vectors. So the effect on the two document D and D dash now, since the D appended to itself from earlier side, they have now identical vector after the length normalization. So it means if the two documents and the corresponding vectors, now despite they might have different number of uh, uh, I mean, they have the term frequency different for the different terms they have used. So if they are relatively similar, I mean, you can say the ratio is same. In that case, they will be treated exactly the same way. So in a way, you can compute the, you can perform the length normalization, and now after the length normalization, you can compute the angle between them. So cosine. So in this way, you can see you have a query Q or probably the document D. So you can compute the cosine value of their angle by just simply doing the kind of dot product divided by their magnitude. So because as you know, the dot product Q into D is QD, that is their magnitude, into cos between these two. So you can compute this cost similarity just by dividing this value. You can get this. As you know, the magnitude can be computed by the L2 norm. So here basically you get the L2 norm, and here you can perform the scalar product between the two vectors that you have. So in this way, so Qi is the kind of weighted of the term I in the document in the query, and same for the Di, it's ith term for the document. And in this way, you can compute the cosine similarity, and based once you compute the cosine similarity, you can basically rank the different documents for the given query and return to the user. So so for length normalized vector, so cosine similarity is simply the dot product, as we have mentioned, right? And you can basically perform the length normalization. So that's why often for different documents, you save their length or probably their magnitude uh, as part of the pre-processing, so that if you have to perform those stuff, cosine similarity and so, you can quickly compute. So this is just a visualization. Now after the, as you can see here, all the vectors are now length normalized. So once it is length normalized, you can compute directly the angle between the given query and the different documents. As you can clearly visualize, now the angle between the query and the document is less as compared to this. It means it has the high similarity as compared to this. Same for this one, you can see. I mean, this particular query and the document, the angle is quite high as compared to this. So it means, I mean, yeah, so query Q comparison with probably the document D2 has high similarity as compared to D3. And in this way, you can now get the rank list of document. That is, in the last class as well, we have also discussed in details why do you need the rank list of document for a given query, because the Boolean information, the Boolean uh, retrieval basically help you to only get the exact matching, and often that basically yield into the, you can say, the feast or probably the the starvation. So if it is too many documents, you don't know what their ranking is, which one to look into, which one is more important. So often for a human, it is always important if you can present the list of result in some kind of, you can see the uh, reference preference order, or you can say more on the relevance order. So you can basically sort them based on their cosine similarity, and you can basically refer to document probably top 10, top 20, or top k in general, right? So because often you do a Google search, you get a list of documents for a given query, and often you see it's kind of, we are able to probably get 1 million document, 10,000 documents. As a human, you are not going to look at all 10,000, right? So in a way, you probably mainly satisfied your information need by the probably just looking at the top k, and often this is limited to the first page itself. So that's why the ranked information retrieval is very, very important, and that could be useful. So let's see, I mean, how we can compute the cosine similarity. So for example, you have the 3 documents here. So like SAS is Sense of Sensibility. I don't know if you have read that. uh, Pride and Prejudice. So that is the second novel document that you have. Similarly, the WH. So have anybody read these novels? Anyone? Not relevant to the IR, but in
I
general.
read
Yes,
Pride
sir.
and Prejudice.
So who is the author of the first one?
So the second one is Jane Austen.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is also Jane Austen.
Very nice. And how about the third one?
Emily Bronte.
Okay. Is it true?
Yes, sir.
Okay, nice. But at least, yeah, I can see that. So yeah, I haven't read these novels, and so, but at least as you have rightly mentioned, the first 2 novels are from the same author, right? So what do you think? I mean, if you compute the similarity, or you can say the compute the if the which 2 document out of these 3 are similar, so what would be your answer? Because these 2 are probably the same author, hopefully, I mean, these 2 might be similar document as compared to probably other, right?
Yes, so similar writing style and
Yeah,
maybe
similar
similar vocabulary.
probably similar vocabulary. Yeah, you're very well right. So often, I mean, if you see a lot of research paper are I mean, the publishing this, I mean, recently, is where basically they're focusing your identity is also the way you write, because often you have your own set of probably the vocabulary that you often use, right? So in a way, I mean, if even if you look at it in that way, and probably the some different authors may have different, you can say, the writing style. So for example, some author probably write mainly the climax, probably the some author probably mainly write, you can say, romantic novels, stories, right? Or probably someone is probably thriller, or probably the horror or something, right? In a way, the often, if then the genre is fixed, right, or certainly the genre is similar, probably the person, right? In general, I mean, you can think, I mean, ideally we should have higher similarity for these 2 documents as compared to probably SAS and WH. So based on the whatever the representation we are discussing, so hopefully we should get something similar result, right? So just to simplify, so in this example that we are going to discuss, we don't do IDF weighting, just for the simplification, not for because we shouldn't do. So yeah, so just treat it like, I mean, just for the simplicity we are not doing so, but ideally in the real case you often compute the IDF as well. So if you only consider the frequency, just consider the log frequency weighting as we have discussed, because the often the frequency is too high, so often you kind of reduce its effect by considering the log frequency. So this is something you can compute using log frequency. And so right now, I mean, just think of, I mean, these set of document that you have is based on these 4 terms again. So again, for the simplification only. So similarly, you have after length normalization, you can basically compute the this here. So this is only the log frequency. This is after the length normalization. So if you compute the dot product between these 2, so if you see here, the SAS and the WH, they having the probably the highest as compared to SAS and PAP, and probably PAP and WH. But if you compute the after the length normalization, so if you see the cosine similarity, the cosine similarity between SAS and PAP is highest, which we were expecting, as compared to SAS and WH and probably PAP and WH, because since they are from the same author, we were expecting to have probably highest similarity, and this is somehow depicted by the cosine similarity. So that's why you can see here. So if you don't only consider the probably the dot product, not without length normalization, you may yield with probably the wrong result. So like in this case, you can see here the SAS and WH is the probably the most similar document, but ideally this is not correct, right? So that's why the length normalization is very, very important when you're doing any information retrieval related stuff. So this is how you can compute the cosine similarity. It's very intuitive, you can see. So you have the score n, you have the length n is the number of document that you have. So for a given query T, basically you need to look for in what all document it has been appeared. So for each pair document D that you have, you compute the term frequency and in that particular document, and in this way you keep computing the score for that. So in a way you are computing the score of the document, right, for each term it is having. So in a way you can compute that, and once you have the overall score of the document, you compute the normalized score by dividing by the length, as we have discussed, because if you don't compute the normalized score, it may probably yield you something wrong results. And once you have the normalized score, you can simply just return the top k components of the score. So the previous algorithm basically scores term at a time. So if you see here, so we are considering one term at a time, and just look at what all document it has appear, and you can compute the score. So in a way, this scores basically one term at a time. Similarly, you can also modify the algorithm to adapt it for document at a time. So in a way, you can compute the you can basically do the weight of term, particular term T in the given document, and you can basically get the each posting. That could be kind of bit expensive, because we would have to store the floating point number every time. So since the posting list is quite high, so one possibility could be, how about just store the IDF in the head of the posting list, and TF, which is kind of not a floating point number but an integer, that will have less space as compared to the IDF, which is often a kind of floating point number. So in a way you can score them in such a way and compute their computation on the fly. So once you have the weight of different terms, the reason being we are computing the weight of different token is that, since even in the document or even in the query, right, not all terms having the same importance. So that is why even in information retrieval, often we have to compute the weightage of different tokens which has been used, and that will only the way you can probably find the current set of documents for a given query. So that is why you need to compute the weights for the different tokens. That weight is nothing but the importance of different tokens, and these are basically some optimization, the way you can probably store them in different ways. So what are the other optimization you can think of? Another optimization you can think of in order to speed up the you can say the retrieval process, because if you're going to, is it feasible, what do you think, is it feasible to compute the cosine similarity of the given query and all the document in your database? Do you think it is feasible in real time? Anyone?
So no, sir. So because the space could be huge, like one way could be to like basically we compute the representation for the documents beforehand and index them and bucketize them in some way, so that like even when we are computing similarity, we only compute with terms that we know would be already somewhat similar.
Right.
For example, one could be we could use heuristics like same authors, which we just
Very
follow,
nice.
or
Very nice. So when you say the same author, so where all those details are given often?
Sir, metadata.
Exactly.
The document.
So in a way, for different documents, often you have the metadata as well. So you can basically somehow sort it or probably do some filtering or something based on the metadata that you have, like from the same author, or probably the year, or probably the publisher. It could be different. It could be probably the different ways you can think of, right? Another thing could be, I mean, often in order to speed up these things, what happens in real time information retrieval system. So they basically have a notion of something called captain documents, or probably the kind of you can say representative documents, right? So you can treat it like some kind of LD or something. So where you group different all the document that you have in your database into small you can say the groups, and among those groups you can probably say you can take some representative document, because if your query is matching to the representative document, so for example, if you have 100 such group of documents, right, and for your given query it is probably matching with the 3 such groups, quite, you can say, based on some threshold quite high, but probably the remaining 97 groups that you have is they are very far, right? So you don't have to look into the all 100 groups that you have, right? So now you can probably focus on only the 3 groups which are similar, and now once you find these 3 groups, you can probably just compare the different document that you have. So similarly, the extracting the top key documents can be done on a priority queue, that is a heap that you have used. In a way you can do so. So there are several ways, as we have also discussed in the last class. So there are several ways through which you can compute the TF-IDF weighting. So very simple way, just compute the TF, right? And document frequency is 1 and probably the normalization is 1. But ideally this is not the best way of doing so, right? So because often the TF is quite high, so that's why people move towards the log value of the this TF, and often we add this +1 just to avoid some smoothing, just performing the smoothing, because if this becomes 0 it will be an issue, right? Similarly, in this way you can compute the IDF and compute the cosine similarity and so on. So there are several formula, there are several ways you can compute the TF, document frequency, and normalization. So like in this case we have mainly focused on this one. So weighting may differ in queries versus document. So it is not necessary that you follow exactly the same weighing that you are doing here for both queries and the documents. There are several ways you can do so. So in this case, you can think of like many search engines allows for different weighting for different queries and document. So one smart notion which has been mentioned and again could be utilized. So like denotes the combination of use in an engine with the notion of DDD.QQQ. So D here is referring to the documents, Q here is referring to the query. So using the acronyms for the previous table. So very standard weighing scheme is LNC. LNC is the logarithmic of the term frequency. N is a kind of no IDF. I guess the C is mentioning it. Yeah, so cosine normalization. So in a way you can compute based on this. If you want to perform no IDF or probably the cosine normalization or logarithmic of TF, depends on, right? So in this case, LNC stand for logarithmic of TF, no IDF, and cosine normalization. So in case of query, logarithmic of TF, IDF, and C is again the cosine normalization. In this way, basically you can having the different queries and the document, and you can compute the values. So as you can see here, so now you have the different query. I mean, you have the query which having probably these four terms. Similarly, having the documents. So the query is best car insurance. So in this case, you can see the best car insurance is kind of all 1, but auto is 0 because it is not present. And in this case, you have the document. So using the formula that we have mentioned in the previous slide, you can compute the dot product and probably compute the score using this method. So the summary is, so represent the query as a weighted TF IDF vector. The reason being not all terms of different not all terms of equal importance. So different terms having the different importance. So you need to compute that weightage. So TF IDF is the one of the way you can do so. So represent each document as a weighted TF-IDF vectors. The same analogy is applied here as well, but since it's a longer document, this is the smaller documents. So compute the cosine similarity for the query vector after the different normalization that we have mentioned. So once you have that, so rank the document with respect to the query by score and return the top K document. So that could be, for example, usually the 10 or 20 to the user. So yeah, so most of the things that we have discussed here from the chapter 6 of the shared material. So you can have a look if you want to go into more details. Yeah, so any questions before we go for the presentation from the students? Any questions? Okay, so I consider this silence as like everyone is happy and they don't have any questions. One thing I quickly want to discuss because I believe I may not have time. So as part of the process, as part of the yeah, so as part of the academic process guideline, we have to discuss the I mean whatever the course feedback that you have in the class. So firstly, I am very thankful to you and humbled to see the very nice comments that you have given. So good to see that many of you are happy with the probably whatever the classes we are having, the participation, and also most of you feel happy that the pace is not too fast or too slow, that is the moderate. So thanks for the feedback. According to you, what is going well in the class? Again, I'm very humbled and very thankful to you that you have appreciated our efforts we are putting, all the TAs that are putting. So like instructor is very cooperative, encouraging, well-paced manner, pace, everything is going well. Content is good, everything is good. So curriculum is going on time. Class interaction, everything is fine, pretty easy and understand. That's nice to hear. So instructor explains everything well. Very happy to see that. I will try probably to put more effort to just to keep going this momentum. Everything is fine in this course, pace, and sir explain things very well, very well. So again, so topics are covered nicely. So I'm very thankful to you for giving such a nice feedback and probably appreciating the efforts we all as a team putting, be it me, be it like all the TAs. So thank you so much. So what is there anything you wish to change? So most of you has said no, nothing has to be changed, but some of the things like more short tutorials, pace of the lecture should be increased. I believe today's pace is slightly faster. Hope my idea is often in the beginning, I think it's good to be go slow, but in the latter parts when the students more got familiar to the topic, we can speed up the thing. So yeah, we can do so. So most of the people say, yeah, so I'm happy with the things, but still some other feedback, I will probably look into more details. And if anything need to be changed, you can give your feedback anytime. You don't have to wait for filling this form again. You can give your feedback in between as well. So little fast. Okay, so some people say little fast. So yeah, so given, I mean, often the class size is quite big, 200 or so. Yeah, so sometimes it is very difficult to probably satisfy the need of every student, but we'll try our best what can be done. But overall, I mean, I'm very happy, and this is also very encouraging to see that majority of the students have attended all the classes, and since there is no compulsion on the classes, no attendance compulsion, right? But still you are attending the classes, so I treat it like you like the class and probably appreciate our efforts, and we will be very happy to probably help you in any ways that you want. So one of the steps we have taken is like we have the doubt clearing session and different things. So please participate in that. Please, if you have any question, also set up a meeting with the instructor, that is myself, or probably the any TAs that you have. They already have predefined uh, predefined they already have the predefined slots for you. If that slot don't work, we'll be very happy to probably find out other slots. So feel free to utilize all those stuff we have. So so just a suggestion, some of the course important instructions like quiz, class, presentation could be posted on the classroom as they cover up a lot of okay. So yeah, so we'll do so. No, that's not an issue. Let me copy and we can. So one more thing before I go further. Okay. So okay, ignore this. Not for your eyes. Anyways, yeah. So who will be presenting today? Who will be presenting today? Please tell your name.
Yes, sir. We'll present, sir.
Prithvi, right?
Prithvi, Ayushi, and Anubhav. I'll share my screen.
Yeah, yes, sir.
So I made you co-host. Who is from the second group?
Sir, Rahul, Meena, and Tim.
Okay, so Rahul, I made you co-host. You can go next. So
Okay.
Prithvi, you can get started. So please try to
Sure,
wrap
sir.
up your presentation in not more than 10 minutes.
Sir, can you make Apurv as a co-host instead of?
Apurv.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir,
Yeah.
Apurv. Yeah.
Apurv Lokhande.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I did the same.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So is my screen visible?
Yeah, I can see.
I will start.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, here we are presenting our idea for LegalX. LegalX is an introduction of AI into the field of judiciary, Indian judiciary. Next. These are the various news headlines that have the news headline speaks for itself. Even our Chief Justice of India has said that if the judicial system is powered by AI, there can be various limitations that are there right now. But if artificial intelligence is the new hope, and that's why we can introduce artificial intelligence for the field of judiciary in India. Next. What he said was to propose, if possible, a system of artificial intelligence, that there are many things which we need to look at before we introduce. These include the trust deficit, then there are data availability problems, and we don't want to give the impression that this is going to substitute the judges, but it will assist the judges. There will be no robo judge. This will only be a assistance, and we can equip the judges with more facilities in order to increase the ratio of the available judges and all the cases that are pending. Next. These are the statistics, real-time statistics that are available on our Indian website about the pending cases, the total cases. Next. So this is, I don't think it is clear, but okay. Yeah, back. Yeah, these are the cases. As you can see, the orange one are all the original cases. So introducing artificial intelligence in the field of judiciary can help reduce the expenditure. It is less time consuming, elimination of prejudice, and increased accuracy in the judgments. Next. So what motivated us to think about judiciary is that while thinking about all the possible problems, any of the problems leading to deaths, births, everything involved governance with them. So that's why judiciary is something that has been constantly facing problem, and the number of pending cases, as we saw the real time stats also, it also suggests that Indian legal system is in need of a change. So that's why AI, it is not AI versus lawyer, but AI equipping lawyers. Diving deep into the needs of judiciary, these are the various fields of judiciary that we have, and predictive technology, legal analytics, and automation of documentation are the major fields that we'll be working on. For the next three part, due diligence, intellectual property, and electronic billing, we already have an existing system. This is the existing system implemented in US, which has saved billions. Do not pay. Next. Okay, so our teammate Anubhav will explain about LegalXnet. This is our introduction to a local legal search engine. Anubhav.
Yeah, hello. Like in India, what has been followed is that when a case comes to a legal expert, he has to go through a huge number of legal documents to understand and analyze which one are relevant to the current cases. He prepares legal reasoning by citing or referring to these relevant as similar cases. But with the advancement of the web and a huge amount of legal content being available every day, it is now become intractable for legal practitioners to find the relevant legal documents. This calls for need for automating the search of similar legal documents. Like in Indian judiciary system, many countries such as India follows common law system where there are two primary sources of law. First, statutes or written laws like Section 302, which is the IPC code for describing punishment for murder, And the second is precedents or prior cases decided by the important courts like Supreme Court and High Courts. In such a system, law practitioners have to look up a huge number of prior cases that has match a given situation or a particular case. Next. Now comes the literature survey. What has been followed in the system that has been major developments, and these are some of the recent work that has been done in the domain. And for the brevity of this presentation, we have presented some related works. In the as you can see in the Kumar in the year 2013 have used a PCNet which are mapped in the form of citation. These documents are mapped to create notes, and then these are walked through the maps to the similar documents. In the 2020, Bhattacharya introduced a model called Higher SPCNet, which have considered the hierarchical version of the statutes of the network, but the performance get affected due to the large size of the legal documents and ultimately fails to capture the important concepts due to large. Now comes the PISF model, which is partition smooth inverse frequency. Will improve the legal document summarization using graphical modeling. Next. Now, this is the statutes we are talking about. Like the Indian Constitution has been divided into certain acts, and then there are parts, and then these are further chapters, topic, and at last these are the sections. So we have been like the recent models have not used these kinds of statutes, which are also important for any case because these are also cited. So we have proposed next. So we have proposed a novel hierarchical stat PISF net model. Like PISF is a partition smooth inverse frequency, which will improve the, because the legal documents are very large in size, it will summarize the document based on the topics that are extracted from the legal documents and will store the context of the documents, and at last finally concatenates them to all represent the overall documents. While it is desirable to use the same method to represent document as well, unfortunately, the effectiveness is lost when the representing long documents involving multiple sentences, right? And then these are the notes, as you can see in the right. These are documents which are mapped to each other on the basis of the citations, as well as averaging with the embeddings. Also, these are the in the left. These are the statutes, because we will extract the statutes citation from the legal documents and map these documents with the respective statutes, which can be chapter notes, and this way we form a network of a nodal network of all the documents, and this way we can extract these documents are then linked each other based on extracting out the citation. After all these documents are linked with a directed path with the hierarchical statutes, we will generate a whole path, and then these can be walked to the meta path. Next, apart from this, extracting the similar documents, we have introduced a keyword-based search engine integration, where you can search the relevant cases with just one click with the reasonable reasoning and the decision of the case. It tackles the issue of finding pertinent case laws on another auxiliary source to concatenate the most progressive web crawler. Next. Now comes the data set. We have considered the documents from the Supreme Court of India and the High Court and the statutes in the Indian judiciary. All the case documents and the statutes will be crawled from the Thomson Reutler Westlaw.com. We will be using publicly available full text and will not use any sensitive information. Next, here is the overall architecture of the LegalXNet. Not the architecture, it is like a UI in which firstly the stakeholder will be presented with the app or website where he has to choose the domain, like he is the judge or the lawyer. Then the system will ask the upload the charge sheet of the previous proceeding which they want to match, or they have option to retrieve the document based on the keywords. Lastly, our system will output such top K legal document. Like this is the whole LegalXNet, which is the sole heart of our whole system of LegalX, connecting all the documents. Next. Now my partner Ayushi will explain about the legal expert.
Here is our initiative legal expert for a predictive technology. What it does is we have an existing system, Compass and Heart. These are the technology introduced in the Durham Constabulary, and these models are used for criminal profiling and also for assisting judges, because there they have the human robo, judge robo kind of thing. So these are the software that they have been using, and the limitations are biased results towards the black race. They conducted a study in which they found that the black race was every time it was evaluated, the black race was towards favored, less favored than the white race. And transparency was another issue because of the robo judge. The entire model could not be disclosed to the public, so arriving at a particular decision was not made to public. Interstate crimes, because there is no central system in constabulary in Durham, so that's why interstate crimes could not be, because one data at one point of time and one point of state is not accessible by another state. And unrefined results led to favorism of false positive over false negative. That's why even the innocent were proved as guilty. Next. Expert system, what we are introducing is expert system. Legal expert is expert system in AI, and we'll be using these as the following pages, that is user interface, knowledge base, knowledge representation, inference engine, knowledge expert. Next. Okay, why expert system? Because there is no emotions involved inside the machine, high efficiency, expertise in a domain, no memory limitations, high security. Next. Knowledge representation and knowledge base. This will be both factual and heuristic, and knowledge base will be formed from the legal advisors, a panel consisting of legal advisors. Representation will be by the rule-based framework. Next. This is the inference engine that will be mainly constituting to the entire expert system. Anytime a new case is entered, the search engine, as stated by my partner, LegalXnet, shall simultaneously compare over 100 selected modus operandi. What is modus operandi? Is the selected pattern behavior that is observed in the criminals. And LegalXnet, being a semantic contextual search engine, it would give the top 10 ones.
So Ayushi, sorry to
Yes, sir.
interrupt. You need to wrap up soon because
Yeah,
I
sure,
think
sir.
we're
Yeah.
beyond the time.
So after these are the results that were obtained in the existing system: low risk, high risk. Next. This is the rough architecture for that. Next. Okay. Again, the similar kind of how it will be evaluated: low, medium, and high risk. The results that were obtained. Okay, so we are going to integrate this with NMT SUAS, that for different vernacular languages, that is already implemented in India as stated by our Chief Justice. Next. Legal X
Okay,
draft
so,
is for
so
document
now
generation. Yes.
okay, so now we have for contract review existing systems such as Logik. It allows a contract review automation platform that allows a user to review their contracts. Okay, uh, we can see the UI here. Now for the limitations for the existing system, it although it help as a review system, but it is only effective for the negotiation part only. For drafting, we need to have a manual drafting, which is expensive and time consuming. So we propose a legal X draft tool. It allows lawyer to draft their contracts based on standard clauses and templates created by the relevant department. Okay, so we can see the proposed system here. In the left, the document is generated completely by the AI. In the right, user can verify and update the document as needed. Okay, so we can see the flow diagram for the broad understanding of how it will work. First, the user will provide the document to the system. The system will fetch the template needed and generate the content in form of legalized language. Finally, the system will generate the draft of the legal document required. Here we can see a broad architecture of the proposed system in detail. Okay, so the simple document request will be sent. The request will be processed and stored. Then template will be requested. Then the legal document will be generated in 2 steps, like content determination and then document structure. Then the user will be notified of the document and the database will be updated accordingly. Following is the
Now,
complete. Okay. Now
this is
Anmol
the
will.
expected UI system where you can select the people on the basis of whether you're a lawyer, judge, or a practitioner, and you can upload the cases. Then you can select, and then in this way you can get the top K documents with the relevancy score. And then you can on the right side you can see the legal aspect on the basis of what you want to select. Like if you want to use legal draft, This is the basic UI. Next. Like these are the short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals. In the short term, we are planning to collect the data and proceedings. We are to integrate the legal XNet on legal XDraft and all the system. In the mid-term goal, we are trying to eliminate the bias elimination with the human interaction and the coordination. And then we are expanding the model with the help of auto proceeding systems. And then the long term, we are trying to see the whole automating the whole court proceedings and the crime investigation right from the police investigation, thus equipping the justice system with the advanced AI system, making the justice quick and effective.
That's all. Thank you.
So thank you, Ayushi, Anubhav, and Prithvi. Very nice presentation. So any questions from audience? So probably one quick question. So what are the limitations you can see in implementing this?
So the bias regulation is very important, as we saw in the existing system towards the black race. There was quite a good number of bias. So considering from Indian constitution point of view, we have regional bias, religion bias. Then we can even consider the caste system, the minority. So if the data is biased, then arises the algorithmic bias. So that's why for the midterm goal, we are going to plan for the bias elimination through continuous auditing purpose. And transparency will be, because there will be no robo judge, there will be everything will be inside the machine assisting the judge. So that's why transparency can be improved. So if the data is on the assumption of data availability, we can eliminate the bias for continuous audits. That's the major limitation that we observed.
And what is the major benefit of this system as compared to existing?
So there will be all the clerical tasks that are there that involves quite a number of lawyers. Even financially, it will be assisting the government, and even for the, like, there are many cases. For example, the draft legal X draft can help reduce the time consuming for the petty matters, very small matters that we have, even the family court. All the reviewing of legal documents can be done through legal X draft.
Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah, got it. Very nice. Okay, so next group. Yeah, please share your screen, and so
Yes,
please
sir.
try to wrap up in 10 minutes, not more than that.
Yes, sir. Yes. So the slides are visible. Hello.
Yes, they're visible.
Yeah. Hi all. Our topic of presentation is live camera crime detection and alarming system. So these are our team members. So basically our idea is to detect the criminal activity in an ongoing live video and then reporting it to the concerned authorities. And also we are planning to make an alert system so that the authorities can take the necessary action and then avoid a crime beforehand. So according to the livemin.com, installations of the CCTV cameras came after the 2012 Delhi gang rape case. Hundreds of crores of rupees have been spent since on this week. By 2019, there were over 4,27,000 cameras were used by the police across India for surveillance. While this increase in number of the number of cameras will increase in the recent years, while this installation of cameras have been proved in solving crimes, they haven't necessarily been able to deter them. And also the existing system of monitoring is done by humans, so they are not fully capable of making decisions and triggering actions. So moving on to the next section of our presentation, need of AI CCTV surveillance. Repeat.
The need of AI surveillance system. Next slide. As we can see in this slide, that usually in the surveillance room there is there is lack of staff, and it is very difficult for doing a one-to-one mapping. As when CCTV is installed, they're installed in an arrays. Not only one set CCTV is installed, many are installed around a marketplace or a bank, and in many cases there is not even a surveillance system or monitoring system. Basically, what they do is they just store the video, because of which the thing happening is we are able to solve the crime with the help of CCTVs, not stop them. Next slide, please. As we can see here, if there is a chaos going here, it will be very difficult for the person who is monitoring, if there is one or two person. And next slide, please. In this slide, as we can see, the people are carrying some weapons. And because if it is detected they're carrying weapons, it can be stopped, it can be alarmed to the authorities, and authorities can arrest them, and the ongoing crime can be stopped. Next. And many times the question is raised that our CCTV is helping in reducing the crime. So actually the answer is a mix of it. When we in the report of Navbharat Times, it was mentioned that the CCTV has stopped the crime rate by 59% of the vehicle theft, not of other things. And as we can see in this article, it is mentioned that next slide please, that the crime rate of Cochin and Chennai is almost similar, but the density in the CCTV installation is very different from Chennai and Cochin. But still, it is the same because this is because of the lack of active systems, which can active alarming and active protecting systems. From now on, it will be taken by Lokesh.
Yeah. So the question arises that whether there is an existing system in this regard. So yes, of course, there's Bhopal Eye, which is very closest to this system. In this system, camera can be made available publicly by the public and live feed to the control room on the permissions granted from the public. So live monitoring can be done, but is it so that it can help in early detection of the crime or witnessing the crime instance on the spot? So next slide, please. So what novelty our system is proposing? So any system which has some sort of automation becomes uniform and becomes fault tolerant as more manpower is required to handle the increasing CCTV cameras with every passing day and monitoring them head on. So live camera will be analyzed frame by frame by our system and draw some sorts of similarities from detections of the earlier trained versions of the criminal activities that whether we will be training upon. Like next slide, please. So as we can see that CCTV surveillance is going on, and in our system, the AI system will intrude upon that. It will detect that whether it is a usual activity or there's some criminal activity going on. Similarly, the signal will be transferred to the control room on activation, and control room can act upon that. And here also one thing to notice that they can check upon the instance right away, and they can thereby avoid some false positive cases also. So next slide, please. Yeah, from here I will hand over to Rahul.
So the workflow diagram, as we can see, the camera output is directly fed to the system, and the system will then capture the pictures frame by frame, and then the system will analyze the frames, what kind of activities are going on. So the system will try to detect the facial emotion and object which the person is holding, and what kind of body movement is done by the person, and how many number of people are there. And if any suspicious activity is detected, and then the system will alert the nearest police officers. So in the workflow, so in the facial emotions, like if the person is laughing or talking, smoking, drinking, and the objects such as if the person is holding some gun, a stick, sword, knife, or some pencil in his hand, and the body movement like kicking to someone, hitting, running, throwing, aiming to someone, and pricking pencil in someone's neck. And number of people, like count the number of suspects, how many suspects are there, as well as the number of innocent, so that the system can report count of people to the nearest police officers, and the type of crime can also be detected. Yes. And yes, so in the feasibility for in the short term, as of now, India already have a lot of CCTV camera installed. We just need to connect it to some centralized already trained server. And yes, the nearest police authority is also added to the system. And if the suspicious activity is detected, the system will alert the police. And yes, the long-term or mid-term goals can be seen as more CCTV cameras can also be installed, as Lokesh earlier told you. Some initiatives like Bhopal Eye can also be extended to the countrywide. If possible, we can also extend it to the worldwide. And like each system, each cameras can have its own processing power like Raspberry Pi for saving time. Yes. So thank you. Any questions, sir?
Any questions from audience? or TAs?
I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah, Anmol, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the system that you're proposing, what do you think might be a flaw in this system with regards to the current system of CCTVs that already exists? What might go wrong?
In the if we compare the current CCTV systems, the system can perform wrong. Like it can also detect if someone is holding a gun or kind of thing that is looks like gun, and the system will alert, oh, this is a gun, alert the system, alert the police. And yes, this kind of errors can also happen, but the police can see the photographs. Oh, no, this is not a suspicious activity, so we don't need to go there. Yes, this can also be prevented.
Like somewhere policeman is holding a gun, so it's a usual activity that a policeman is usually holding a gun. But if any other person is holding a gun, so it can detect, and whether it can be trained upon that it's a suspicious activity. So it can alert on the live feed that there's suspicious activity is going on. Please take care of that in the control room, and they can enact upon. So we can reduce the crime rate. Also, coming to the fact that the Bhopal Eye app, it has only 5,000 downloads, and today the Bhopal's population is 23 lakh, and with every passing year it's increasing by 2.5%. So there is no awareness regarding that downloads of that app, how safety it can ensure. So because public support is needed, so here artificial intelligence is taking care of that and improving by removing the manual intervention and taking care of that head on. So I think it's a kind of automation system, and it can help people a lot in early detections of the crime and witness the crime scenes by the police and taking over that.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other question, Anmol, or anyone?
Not from my side, sir.
So yes, one thing I would like to say, in current scenario, as we can see, the CCTV cameras are used to solve the crime, or not to stop the crime. But we are proposing a system that can early detect the crime and then prevent it from happening. So yes, it is feasible in the country like India. Yes.
So last question, meanwhile, probably I request everyone to turn on your camera, and Hemant, probably you can set up the quiz. So last question for the group. So could you please comment on how about the communication among the different CCTVs itself? Do you think they are useful? If so, then how?
Yes, sir. Sir, for the communication, let's say there are two CCTV cameras in my colony, one at the front gate and one at the rear gate. So in the front gate, if there's some activities, some persons are detected holding some objects like gun or sword, something, and then it will detect, oh, this kind of persons are going in the colony, and it will communicate to the other camera, oh, that there are some persons. If the person also detected in the rear camera, then it means the person are not attacking in the colony. They are going from the colony. Then they can just say, these persons are going from the colony, and yes, kind of activity is going to happen to some other nearest place. So yes, communication can also be happen between the CCTV cameras itself.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions from anyone?
Sir, I have 50 questions in the chat.
Yeah, Abhishek, please go ahead.
My question is like, is there some existing work like Bhopal Eye? I think Bhopal Eye is just for capturing the videos. Is there some like working system in the banks which are using your which are able to capture the crime or the event like this, and what is the like data set available, like since the data set would not be easily to get, and in terms of privacy we could also like you would like to comment.
Yeah, in the current
Yes. Some banks are doing this, having this kind of system, but these are not publicly available because of the privacy issue. And there are data sets called HGI2, which have some criminal activities data set. It has some criminal activities pictures and some videos, so we can use this data set. But yes, if I talk about the privacy, yes, some kind of things need to be controlled if we see some privacy issue. Yes.
Adding to Rahul's answer, I would like to also say that in China they are using the surveillance system, but they're not detecting the live crime. They are using if there is a criminal person, they upload the picture of the person like this is the criminal. So all the AI systems will do the face detection in the live mode, and they will alert the authorities that the person is here. This is the most similar thing which will able to find by the which was implemented by a government.
Okay, thank you. Like, okay, one more thing. Lastly, like as you mentioned, China, there was also an instance in China only where the bank manager was itself doing the fraud. So you like what are the limitations of the existing system, and is it able to like select or like find that if the bank person is itself doing fraud like from the camera?
As of now, a big problem will be the main challenge will be to detect the false positive and false negative, because like you mentioned, in the case of bank manager, it was false negative. So we have to detect that also. And as previously mentioned by my teammates also, that if someone is carrying a gun, we have to also see that there is a false positive case.
Thank you.
Okay, so thanks everyone. So we all set for the quiz. So just a quick overview. So it's open book exam, right? So you are, but open book, it doesn't mean, I mean, you don't need to communicate among yourself. So I just request you, it's an individual exam. So don't take help of others. You can use the slides or probably other material that you have. So there will be 10 questions and there will be 20 minutes. So the quiz will be starting at 10:10. So kind of 20 minutes will be there to, you can submit. So Hemant, you want to add anything about the quiz?
No,
How
sir. So the quiz is for 20 minutes, so it will be finished by 10:30, and that's it, I guess.
Yeah, so the link will be there on the Google Classroom. I think Hemant has already scheduled it. So Hemant, can you probably post the link here as well in the chat box? Is it visible?
So we can use internet also for searching.
Yeah, you can use, no issue. Right, Hemant?
Yes, sir. Yeah, sure, sir. Like they can use like
Yeah, you can use internet.
anything they have.
So we have to scan some kind of documents. We have to write down the question, or
it's MCQ Google form. Simply have to
Okay.
select and submit.
Okay, thank you.
There will be kind of 4 to 5 options. Select the most appropriate one. So only just select the one. In fact, you cannot select more than one. So just select the best answer that you think and submit. So Hemant, can we share the link here as well in the chat box?
I think this like this, sir. So it's a quiz in the classroom. So like it's
Okay.
like yeah, not a simple Google form quiz. So they can go to the classroom.
So please go to the Google Classroom and see.
So there is no link there in the classroom.
So okay. So Hemant, you need to help with this.
If it is already scheduled, please post it right now, because sometimes schedule is not working in Google.
Just refresh the page, I think.
No, sir, it is not there.
No, sir, it is not there.
No, sir, the link is missing.
Hemant, I think it's there, right? It is there.
Sir, it is visible only for you, not for us.
Okay.
You can post it. Yes.
Hemant.
Yes, sir, I'm doing. Just give me 1 second. Should work. I don't know why. Uh, hmm. Guys, like use this link. I've shared a link in the chat. I'm also sharing the link on the classroom. So the quiz is active on the classroom.
Yeah, so quiz is active on Classroom as well. So submit there.
Yeah. So guys, please use classroom if you can.
So regarding 5-minute window for submission, there is no separate. So earlier we planned to have only 15 minutes for this 10 question, but we thought let's keep it 20 minutes. So yeah, so just treat this 20-minute window as to complete everything. So please utilize
Yeah,
it.
15 plus 5.
Yeah, 15 plus 5. Yeah.
And if you have any questions, please put up a private comment that you think the answer should be something different.
So just a clarification. No negative marking is there, right?
No negative marking. So I request everyone to turn on your camera because I see some students still on. So please turn it on.
I request everyone to read the chat once. I have posted a clarification.
So, sir, in the question number 6, the main memory one, do I need to consider some constraints or is it directly asked?
Can we assume that all the space is being used only for this sorting process, or like all the 8 KB that is available?
Okay.
No, I'm also asking.
Which question?
In the question number 6, that is the main memory one. 8 KB of RAM is there, and 2048 rows.
So what's your question? Can you repeat? Like,
So I am just asking, is there any constraint like some other programs are also running in the system,
no,
or the sorry?
no. So there is nothing running except this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
In the memory, one question which was just asked, to avoid the confusion, please change the in theory to in practice. It's written in theory you will need to do. Consider this in practice you will need to do.
Which question is this?
The true false one.
Sir, as the quiz was started late, will we get 2 minutes extra?
Yes, actually that due time is 10:32, not 10:30. So yeah.
Sir, what will be the end time of the quiz? 10:35 or no?
10:32.
10:32.
The question that is third from the last, it is k square or k2 or 2k block.
K square.
K square, okay.
Sir, how much time is left?
I guess 1 or 2 minutes.
Sir, can we leave the class after giving the quiz?
Yeah, so those who are done can leave.
The time is nearly up. Please turn in the quiz.
Excuse me, sir. Hello.
Yeah, man.
Sir, actually, I have submitted the quiz, but actually in the classroom it is showing missing. Actually, I opened the quiz using the link provided in the chat.
Yes, sir, I am facing the same problem.
Yeah, me too, sir. I'm facing the same thing.
Suggest what can be done.
Hello guys, use the classroom and just like the option.
You have the option, right? So you know the option. Just select. It will not take more than 30 seconds. Right?
Yeah.
Just use the Google Classroom link and submit. Just 30 seconds.
Sir, Pragya this side. Actually, sir, I submitted at 10:32. Still, it is showing it turned in late.
I mean, just try to submit it now. I mean, you done, right? So it's okay.
Yes, I have submitted it.
I'm trying to open the quiz again.
The deadline is 10:35.
But it is showing you have already submitted.
Yes,
Same
sir.
for me. Yes, sir.
If you have done once, then it's done. Don't worry
Yes,
about
sir. Showing the same.
So Anubhav, please mute yourself and obviously one by one. What is the query? Please let us know.
Sir, actually,
Yeah, Venkatesh, please go ahead. Venkatesh, please go ahead.
So no, sir, I had no queries.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, please go ahead.
So we submitted from the link that was given in the chat, and then you said submit again from the link in the classroom. So when we are clicking on that link, it's saying that you can only give response once, and when we go back to the classroom, it's saying your submission is missing. So we are in a confusion whether it is being submitted or not.
Hemant, please suggest what can be done.
So, okay, so like if you have submitted the quiz, then that's fine. We can use from the classroom or from the Google.
Yeah, so just make sure you submit it at least at one place.
I got this. Sir, I just submitted again from the classroom link.
Okay, then definitely we'll look from the classroom link, and if something is missing, we can take from Google.
Yeah, so if you submit it, then it's done. Don't worry about that. So we have got 189 responses.
Hemant, how much? 189.
Yeah.
So I think that is nearly everything, right?
Yeah, yes.
So anyone here who haven't submitted?
Hello.
Yes,
Hello?
Shivan.
Yeah, so I want to ask a question regarding the project proposal submission. Can I ask it now?
Let people give probably. Okay, so what is the question? Quickly go ahead.
Sir, actually, it was mentioned that we need to mention some of the limitations of the currently work done in that particular topic. So I wanted to ask that there are some of the limitations that we have estimated, but the thing is like some of them can only be justified when we reproduce the model, and then we can say that okay, this can be a limitation. So can we state those limitations in the project proposal and update it at the time of the midsem when we
Yes.
produce a model?
Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we need to end Hemant. So if anyone haven't submitted, we are going to close the submission side.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, no.
Sir, when I submitted, it said that this form is no longer accepting responses. So,
You submitted where? You submitted to the form or classroom?
So, sir, actually,
again
10:35. So I have limited that after 10:35, it won't accept because the deadline was 10:32. So I gave extra 3 minutes. But still it was late.
Sir, I have used the link in the chat box which was provided earlier, and 2 times I have submitted from there. But I also took the screenshot. I can send you that, sir.
Wait. It's too much noise from your side, Anubhav. So you submitted through Google Form, right?
Yes,
Ah,
sir.
it's fine. It's fine. Leave it. So we'll take it from there. Right, Hemant?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So those who submitted through Google form, that's fine. We will take from there if you're not able to submit through Google link. So I think
What's
we are
the
going to close both link now.
name?
So we are going to stop accepting response at both places. Is here anyone who have not submitted to at least any of these both of these places? Okay, so I believe everyone has submitted. So Hemant, you can close the form.
So, sir, the form is actually closed at 10:35 already.
Okay, so everyone has submitted, right? It means, is here anyone who have not submitted?
Hey, so Anubhav Ruhela, so what's your roll number? Like 20057?
20083.
So it's done. It's there.
Oh, okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, guys. So if you have used Google Form or like the classroom, it's okay. We have the responses, and you can only fill once, so that's fine.
Okay, so I believe there is no one else whose response has not been submitted. Okay, so thanks everyone and take care. Bye-bye.